You are listening to the Red Pill Chronicles, where we help awakening souls deal with a blue pill world. I'm your host, John Dennison, and together we'll explore how to take an inner approach to your outer affairs so you can build a better life and a better world to live it in. Welcome to another episode of Red Pill Chronicles. I'm your host, John Dennison, and today I'm not sure how long we're going to go, but I want to sort of outline for you this system of traveling, the spiritual path that I've been laying out over the past couple of decades. And because I know I haven't done a very good job of articulating the overall picture for you, I tend to get a little caught up in the trees, so to speak, because there's so much that can be done with every aspect of it in the traveling of the spiritual path that it's very, very easy to not keep an eye on the bigger picture while you're going forward with whatever it is that you're working on. You'll recall that the purpose of traveling the spiritual path is unification. You can think of it as unification of the ego with the soul, or a unification of the self with the oneness of the source. However you want to see unification is okay with me, because it's not important as to what you picture or that you are working toward. Rather, what's important is the process of keeping that in mind as you're moving forward through all the other things that you're doing in your life and in your preparation along the path. Now, you may recall that I started this phase of my teaching with my book, Whispers in the Silence, Living by the Light of Your Soul, which was a guide to the practice of cultivation for the purpose of traveling the spiritual path. It sort of laid out the basics of the path and started with the concept that we have to prepare the body's energy. We have to prepare our energy fields for the purpose of unification. Basically, our energy fields are filled with all of this energetic dross that needs to be filtered, and then the remaining energies aligned with each other and then onward with those of the soul. The process of cultivation, or cultivation practice, as I called it, was one of basically learning to apply all the different religious or spiritual lessons you've been learning over the years and walking your talk. But in order to do that, you've got to do the things necessary for you to get you out of the way. And when I talk about those lessons, I'm primarily talking about the lessons of love, where we learn to love each other and love ourselves. And it's not easy to love, so we have to get ourselves out of the way. In other words, we have to figure out how to balance those interests of ourselves with others in a manner that serves us and also serves them. And in learning to love is part of the process of cultivating yourself or preparing your energy fields to align with those of the soul in preparation for this unification. There's a whole lot more than loving and doing all these things, and you need to begin to see the different aspects of the processes going on, because besides love, you have all the things dealing with judgment and expectation, and they're all laid out in the book and how they all fit into the picture. But in addition to that, there is the actual physical practices of cultivation, which go into the meditation and other energy practices such as yoga or qigong, which may be used to condition the energy fields of the body in terms of addressing this alignment. I don't particularly espouse any one form or another, because as you may know, that my approach is that we each have a slightly different approach to the spiritual path. So we have to find and go our own way along it. So I don't try to force you into a particular set of practices so much as I want you to understand the process, so that as you undertake whatever it is you are doing, you will understand why it is you're doing it and how to use it more effectively, or what you're using it for and trying to accomplish with it. And getting back to the cultivation of the energy fields, there we talk about the physical energy fields, which we're talking about, and hopefully those will working toward alignment. So as you get into upper levels of Qigong and yoga, they focus more on the spiritual side or the mental side of as Kriya Yoga, or clearing the mind of the thoughts, similar to Zen. Anyway, these are all different practices, all with the same purpose, to allow the ego to begin to get out of the way. This is really the objective, although we're not, like I spoke last week, we're not really trying to negate the ego in terms of giving it no purpose, but rather the ego is the vehicle by which we have to achieve unification. As Jesus taught, only through me can you get to the Father. Well, only through your ego can you get to the soul. So as you are working with these things within yourself, understand the purpose of why you're doing this. Because you are trying to achieve or work toward this state where you can be more in unity with that eternal aspect of yourself. Now understand that unification is not a switch that you throw, and all like enlightenment. All of a sudden, you're asleep and then you're awake, or you're unenlightened and enlightened, or you're separate and then you're unified. It's not like that. It's a gradual or a serious process, a series of degrees that we go through until we finally reach oneness with the Creator. And you, wherever you are along that path, will be led to the experiences and practices that are going to assist you for that place in your journey. Now, I'm hoping that some of the things that I show you here or talk to you about here will help you with that process. I call them breadcrumbs because many times they arise from my own experience or my own learning, but I'm sort of going through reteaching myself all of this in order that I may better relate this to you so you can have an easier time on your journey home. Now, going back to the process again, we talked about the cultivation of the ego. Now, again in the book also I talked about the role of desire and how desire is leading us on, and we are infested with desires that ultimately we have to address within the ego, because these are things that chain us to manifestation. Understand there are two aspects of what you're talking about, of what we're looking at here. There's manifestation, which is living in the world that you have and creating the life and experiences that you hope to get, that you want to get, not necessarily the ones you need to get. And then there is unification, which is that merger of the ego and the soul, where the self becomes whole. It is this process of manifestation which the ego is concerned most of the time in its life, because it has to deal with reality. And in reality, it's got to somehow shape that reality to that it can function adequately, that it can have the food and shelter that it needs, that it can take care of its own health, that it can provide for its own. You can provide for your family, that you can support yourself and keep a roof over your head and do all the things necessary to survive, and hopefully to even thrive within that reality. But the focus of the ego on the outer needs, the outer desires for which we're trying to apply the process of manifestation, is part of the cultivation practice, because we need to, as we adjust ourselves within, we have to adjust the methods with which we manifest and experience our reality. It's no longer the same old things, nose to the grindstone, effort, persistence, luck, all those things are not the only factors involved, because we then have to begin drawing in the other energies which we'll refer to as the force, which you could also think of as the Tao, or the intangible of non-existence, the light, or however else you want to see it. It's this energy which has to be gathered and manipulated and brought to bear in the manifestation of your reality. But again, understand, it is the manifestation of your reality only has to do with this life. It may make it feel better, or if you don't succeed, it may make it worse. But it's still only about this life, because ultimately the goal is at the end of the rainbow of this life and all your lives, which is that process of unification. And you don't know where you're going to be along that path in any particular life. What you're trying to do is advance yourself. When you travel the spiritual path and follow all the practices that you adopt for yourself along the path, it is to advance yourself along this path toward unification, toward returning to God, toward becoming worthy of being admitted into the kingdom of heaven. However you want to see it, it's this process of your life and how you live it that's going to empower you to draw closer to the source from which you came. But it's not the be-all, manifestation is not the be-all, end-all. And failure to manifest may just be a catalyst which is pushing you toward the unification process, to enable you to help start the process of getting your ego out of the way. Well, anyway, the system I've been laying out, you'll notice that there are 3 primary websites that started all this. There's Peace Options, which I set up to help people find their peace, and it was basically talking about the peace on the spiritual path and how it relates to the world we're living in. There is Mission Launch, which is the process of service, whether it's service of self in terms of bringing forth the inspirations and contributions we have to enhance our own lives, or the lives of those that we feel attached to, like our families, or whether it's to serve others altruistically with expectation of nothing in return, or at some place in the middle along that path. It is the process of service was always part of was the second leg of this, and the third one was knowing yourself, which is what I set up Whisper Zone to do. And they ended up with separate websites. At one point I had them all merged together, but I had to separate them because it was easier for me to sort out in my mind how they functioned, and to make it so that each one had some sort of a semblance of rationality to those that were still looking at it from outside the spiritual process. But understand that all 3 are part of this cultivation process. So not only are you meditating and doing your energetic work and working on your love and judgment and all those other things, but in addition to that, in order to cultivate the ego and to know what has to be addressed, you have to know yourself and why you are the way you are and what you're trying to accomplish. And in the knowing of yourself is when you begin to discover all these things about how you have created yourself that are going to allow you to move forward on the spiritual path to your own awakening and your own unification. So as you work on knowing yourself, you are actually working through part of the process of cultivation. The second step is to find your peace. Now, the energy fields that we talked about, they're all vibrating. And they're not always vibrating in harmony with each other, and certainly they may not be vibrating in harmony with a greater reality in which you find yourself at the moment. And so, in order to find your peace, you have to figure out how to reconcile and harmonize all these different energies. Now, a lot of those energies are being set off by vibrations of the inner conditions that you're looking for and finding as you begin to know yourself. So that you will see that they work hand in hand, that you can't find your peace unless you know yourself and you know what you have to address, and you have to align and harmonize. So again, all of this is part of the process of cultivating you, or as I call it, preparing your inner soil. the third aspect, again, is your mission, which is the bringing forth of the inspirations and visions and contributions that you feel you're called to make. That as you awaken, as you begin to tap into these inner portions of yourself, new aspects of creativity and contribution begin to flow out. You may have to write a book or put something down. You may have to go out and help someone else. You may find yourself writing music or art, creating art, or doing just about anything. But understand that the inner flow that comes from your intuition and your inspirations are part of what happens as the ego begins to start subsiding and allowing the cracks within your energy field to separate, so that these contributions can flow out to you into your mind, and from your mind into the world. Without your first having done a lot of the work that you've been doing, you probably won't even be recognizing many of those that are happening. But again, the process of aligning yourself and creating and bringing forth these contributions to yourself or to others, or some combination, is again part of your process of cultivating and aligning your energy fields. So I want you to think of it as a multi-pronged approach, Ted. If you're going off and and look at where your focus is in your life. Your focus may be on some things that are happening within you. And as I've heard some masters say, it's like polishing the mirror. When is the mirror clean enough? Well, the mirror may never be clean enough, but it's clean enough for what you need right now. It may never be clean, but it's clean enough for what you need right now. But finding your peace when the world around you or your search situation is falling apart can be tremendously difficult. And even when it's not, when you're wrapped up in these dark nights of the soul, it can drive you nuts. So, again, see all of these aspects of what we're working on as part of the process of you preparing you, because they are all going to work together to turn you into a more effective vehicle that can allow this energy to flow back and forth between your ego and your soul. And when that does, that in turn draws you closer to unification. I don't want you to look for some magic aha moment. You may have those along the way, but those are not the objective of what you're looking for or what you're working toward. You will know when you get there. And it may not be in this life. It may be simply that you're preparing yourself for an ascension to come, or preparing yourself to make some contribution to the world that you came to make, and that your soul is calling you to fulfill, that you have just been ignoring or setting aside for whatever reason. Whatever the reason all these things are happening, you are where you are on the path, and you are trying to consciously evolve yourself so that the actions of your life move you closer toward where you want to go. And hopefully to manifest a life that works for you along the way. So try to be aware of the greater process that you're working in. I don't see it as something that you need to obsess about, but rather, when you are on the path, is the way I've tried to teach it, is you just have to kind of trust that you're where you need to be, and just recognize where you are at any particular time and what you're working on, so that it may give you some hints on how to approach it, how to approach the situations. But again, you have to learn how to manifest and use the energies of the force in new ways. You can't just be the bull in the china shop trying to force your will upon the world. Yet, it is your will that is going to set the way as you're going to travel. And then how you have to find a way to interact, to ameliorate that will, to interact with others in a way that harmonizes with them so that you can be at peace while you're doing it. Believe me, this is a challenging path, regardless of which religion or tradition or method you choose to use to follow it. And again, I don't believe you need to follow any particular path, because this approach or these perspectives will allow you to follow whatever it is that you're doing. But just know that what you're doing is part of this bigger picture of preparing yourself. And when somebody says, no, you got to go do this way, you're going to need to find a way to graciously decline their input, because whatever they've found, they think it's absolutely the right thing for that moment, at least for them, and they want to share it with you. But it may not be right for you. You're going to need to fall back on what is going to allow you to better connect with you and allow you to better deal with these different aspects of you and your life that are going to get in the way of your alignment, of your energies. Just understand the process that you are working through. You are trying to get home to oneness. And the more you focus on the oneness, the less importance the manifestation or the failure of manifestation will take. I do not suggest you ignore your material needs. Just to understand that your focus upon them, your desire for them, may wax and wane as you go through different stages along this journey. And you will find that just because you have worked through something and thought you had mastered it or resolved it to at least a satisfactory level at some point in your past doesn't mean it's not going to come back again, either in the same way or in some new challenges that require you to take new and deeper lessons from where you are. Because because no matter how far you come, there's always farther to go. There's always more. So what you want to do is just keep going and keep your eye on the ball, that you are looking to become one, yet along the way you have to manifest the energies in your life in order to create a life that will allow you to move toward oneness. Because if you can't work your life in such a way that you can focus on your own self and your own cultivation and your own energies, it may be extremely difficult for you to do so if your focus has to be strictly upon survival or all the bad things that are happening to you. But then again, those bad things may just be there to lead you a little closer toward what you have to do within yourself. I see a lot of people that when something happens, they say, oh, I'm sure that I wonder what this is good for. I wonder what this is doing for me. What's the lesson here? Well, it's not so much that there's a lesson to take out of the specific experience of the moment, so much as it is to see what goes into making it the way that it is. Because it is in seeing the way that it is that brings you choice over your affairs and how you conduct yourself. And choice is the hallmark of consciousness. It is the expansion of consciousness along this path that will continue to draw you closer. We are all growing toward the light. We are at each different places along the way, and sometimes we take 3 or 4 steps backward in order to take one important step forward. And you never know which is which. You just have to deal with whatever's in front of you at the moment. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you today. I know we didn't go anywhere near our normal hour, but I don't think you'll mind. If you have any questions or need help dealing with whatever's going on in your cultivation or your life, feel free to contact me. I offer a free consultation. You can reach me at johndennison.com. And I would ask that also that you like, share, and rate this podcast so that other people can enjoy it too and maybe learn a little bit about their journey as well. Anyway, thank you for joining me today. I look forward to talking with you in our next episode. Again, my name is John Dennison. Go with love. You have been listening to the Red Pill Chronicles, where we help awakening souls move in a better way through a blue pill world. For more information, visit us at peaceoptions.com to explore how you can find your peace through knowing yourself and following your inner voice. Or at missionlaunch.com, where we offer coaching and consulting to help you make the difference in your world.